So how is regulatory compliance different than a normal compliance that you hear about?
When it comes to regulatory compliance, you have to look at the local laws and regulatory requirements.
Now, if somebody who is a BCom graduate and wants to get into the space of compliance, regulatory compliance in a big investment bank, what are the actionable steps that he can do?
So I partially answered that question, just few seconds back. The person has to be aware of, the regulatory landscape.
Like you have done CFA, Claritas investment certification. Any certification which is there in the compliance space or closer to that, which anybody can do and get a view of what is happening in compliance. Now, you have joined at an associate level also and you've progressed to a VP level. What is the change in thinking that anybody needs to have? Or what thought process anybody needs to have to progress to a senior level in any organization?
This is what I believe. You have to be a problem solver. You have to.
How do you see the future of compliance for investment banks in India? Hello guys, I hope everybody is doing good. Hi, this is Ganesh Naik. I help finance professionals and students to excel in their career and become a better version of themselves. And I also help students preparing for competitive exams in finance like CFA, FRM, and SCR. And as a part of that journey, we also connect to industry people trying to understand what is the requirement of different rules in the industry. And one such interview is what we are doing today, right now, with Mr. Gopichand Thakur. And he's going to be talking about his entire experience in the space of compliance and what it actually needs from the candidate perspective to be in that space. So, Gopichand, thank you very much for taking out time and talking to us.
Thank you for inviting me.
And for the benefit of the audience, if you can give a brief of your journey in the space of compliance and risk, briefly.
Again, thank you so much for inviting me. I started my career back in 2006. It was not always into risk management space. I started with insurance sales. I did that for good 4-5 years. Then I came into compliance space. Basically portfolio compliance space, where I was working for GCC, which in turn was supporting one of the biggest investment banks. And I was there as an analyst managing portfolio compliance for big clients. So I was there for a good 3 years, and then I actually landed up into proper regulatory compliance and risk management space. So it was not planned, but somehow I got this opportunity to be into this space, and I've been enjoying this for almost over a decade now.
Wonderful. So how is regulatory compliance different than a normal compliance that you hear about?
Yeah, in a nutshell, compliance is compliance, right? You have to adhere to laws, regulations, have to uphold the ethical standards. So the basic parameters are same, right? When it comes to regulatory compliance, you have to look at the local laws and regulatory requirements, which differs from country to country, location to location, and region to region. RBI might have a different regulatory requirement for our banks, right? And SEBI might have a different regulatory requirement for a broking house, right? And this might be relevant for Indian space, but that might be different for let's say EMEA located companies, or a Japan located company, or a US located company. They might have their own local regulations or own local laws which they have to adhere to, right? But at the crux of it, compliance is as plain as following guidelines, following rules, following regulations, or upholding the ethical standards. No matter which industry, be it manufacturing, be it healthcare, or be it a financial services industry, where I am currently placed.
Okay. And you mentioned about GCC. So for the audience, it's Global Capability Center, which is in India, but it is providing service to the offices which are outside. Basically, a global company having a center in India.
Correct.
And when we hear about compliance, if you look at any big MNC, what all different teams ideally would be there in a compliance function?
So compliance is again managing to regulatory requirements. Uh, so monitoring and surveillance, is a key component of any GCC having compliance setups here, uh, and that could be across firm trades.
Mhm.
That could be across electronic modes of communications,
Okay.
email, chats, uh, voice. Then monitoring and surveillance around their staff's transactions.
Okay.
Then any outside affiliations or interests that they have, uh, gifts, entertainment,
Okay.
approvals of those as well, generally,
Mhm.
right? Then there are different functions which also looks at the learning and development of those uh, of employees within the firm, right?
From the compliance
From the
perspective.
compliance perspective,
Okay.
across compliance policies, compliance requirement, local or global, right?
Mhm.
And regulatory, fulfilling to regulatory obligations as well, regulatory reporting, and things like that. So there are multiple functions in any compliance setup, and it
Right.
depends from company to company what they have offshored
Mhm.
to India location, and what level the support that is required or services that is required to be given to our onshore entities, to any onshore entity in any GCC.
Okay. So broadly, surveillance is very big component of it, and
Correct.
also the transactions that are happening. So you guys are sitting in backend and checking,
Correct.
okay, that how the transaction is happening, whether there is any foul play
Correct.
or any of that.
Correct.
And like the training part, because any new company that you join in, you have to do that lot of compliance training in the first 1 week.
Correct.
That is basically governed through the team. Now, for somebody who wants to make a career in compliance, now I'm asking this question from the fresher perspective. Normally, students or freshers feel that I have to be a company secretary,
Mm.
and then I will be able to enter into that space. So, is this correct? And if it is not, what different type of people come in this space?
Uh, but that's the usual notion with the freshers, because uh, uh, you know maybe because of lack of guidance. But I'll tell you, generally what industry looks at, let's say as a uh, as a person, someone who hires,
Right.
right? Uh, we do not look at these certifications at large, right?
Okay.
Let's take a step back. There are two types of people that we might hire, right? One from a campus placement, MBA grads, and one might be lateral, right?
Okay.
uh, MBA grads, they are professionals, right? Have done their post graduation into, from MBA.
Mhm.
But lateral ones who might have had some sort of experience in
In
XYZ,
compliance
in
only.
compliance or non-compliance related domains as well.
Acha, okay.
So we are not particular about what the past experience is. In a lot of cases, preferred if they have compliance experience. If not, we look at the candidates' skill sets. We look at how good the person is from a problem solving perspective,
Right.
how articulative that person is,
Okay.
and a lot of other matters,
Mhm.
during that 30 minutes, 40 minutes of discussion that we have with every lateral candidate, right? But personally, we do not look at the certifications. It's always a add-on. It's always good to have people having certifications around developing their analytical skill sets, on
Okay.
there are Power BI certifications, articulate
Acha, okay.
certifications, or Tableau related certifications, which helps in
Okay.
analyzing data at different level, right? That might help because that's where the industry is
Moving.
currently, momentum is currently driving the
Okay.
efforts. But yeah, basically two types of candidates, mainly campus hires, and then lateral at all the
So
levels.
just a connecting question to
Mm.
this. If you look at a compliance analyst,
Mm.
his role, how much part of that would be reading
Mm-hmm.
reading regulation or knowing regulation
Mm-hmm.
in detail, how much percentage would that be ideally?
To be a compliance professional, analyst, mid-level, or a senior professional,
Mhm.
learning has to be a part of daily work, right?
Okay.
Person has to learn and learn and learn because knowledge is power here.
But learning of regulation also.
That's what I'm
Okay.
coming to, right? Because every day uh, we see a lot of regulatory changes happening, right,
Okay.
across jurisdictions, right? Multiple regulators, multiple regions, multiple country locations, right? So every day these things keeps on changing.
Okay.
So we have to keep ourselves updated every day, almost every day, right? And hence we have to be a student. We have to keep on learning every day, and it never stops. Even
Okay.
a junior, an analyst, or people at the top management, they have to keep themselves updated for these ever-changing regulations.
Right.
So it can be, I cannot quantify that, how
No,
much
I
it
got
is
it.
on a
I got
day-to-day
it.
basis, but that is a
But it is
part of
important.
it
It is
is
important for
absolutely
them.
important. And like I said, knowledge is power here. You have to know, what you are dealing into.
So if there is a change in regulation, so compliance team will understand it first, and then it will be communicated to all the internal teams that this is what the regulation means and how we need to implement it.
Mm.
Am I correct on this?
Mostly, but every company has its own structure. How do they deal with interpreting those regulatory changes? Right?
Okay.
So compliance could be one of the teams, right, where they kind of are the first touch points in terms of knowing those regulatory changes or circulars or notifications, whatever it is from any regulator. Then we try to interpret that, right?
Right.
Let's say, for example, an XYZ regulation is a non-compliance related regulation, might be for finance from a reporting perspective, right?
Right.
Financial reporting perspective, quarterly, half yearly, or annually, right? So we might be able to interpret that in the first place, and then might let the finance people to deal with it, right? So you can say we are the first touch points to know those sort of regulations, interpret it, and then let other stakeholders to be a part of that from an action point of view.
Got it.
But whatever is within the compliance world, of course, we have to be aware of it. We have to interpret it correctly, and we have to adhere to it, and potentially keep the regulators updated on a regular interval on the progress as well.
Right. Because when I was also working, so in risk team, operation risk team, there if there is an event that has happened, if there is an implication, so you used to have the compliance approval in place, then only things will move out. So that is why I explicitly asked this question. Now, if somebody who is a BCom graduate and wants to get into the space of compliance, regulatory compliance in a big investment bank, what are the actionable steps that he can do?
So I partially answered that question, just few seconds back. The person has to be aware of, the regulatory landscape. Right? Let's say if it is an Indian company, the person has to be aware of, RBI related regulations or SEBI related regulations, right? And other regulators, whichever is the regulatory authority on that company or that domain, right? That has to be the first thing that person has to be doing, right? And that requires time, that requires efforts. The person has to go to regulatory websites, read journals, attend seminars if possible, or reach out to mentors, let's say on LinkedIn, or go through articles or video tutorials on YouTube, or maybe reach out to an edtech firm like you to seek more guidance, right?
Right.
But the time and effort has to be there to understand the regulatory landscape first and foremost. Then of course, because of the changing environment where firms are heavily leveraging new age technologies, right? AI tools, blockchain tools, or any business analytical tools, like I explained, like
Power BI
BI,
and Tableau.
People have to be aware of those as well. They don't have to be pro, but then they have to be having some sort of awareness around these tools and technologies as well.
Okay.
Because in future, let's say 5 years time, 10 years down the line, that might be a part of our day-to-day engagements. So they have to have some sort of
Because you have
knowledge
so
around
much
that.
data coming in
Exactly.
compliance also. Like when you're saying surveillance, so over there also you need to have AI based systems or software which can give you trigger
Yes.
before the actual event might happen.
Yes, and industry is already using that
Hmm.
to some extent, or I would say industry is experimenting that at the moment,
Okay.
not heavily using it. But let's say in future it might be just like any Microsoft tool that we are using, right? Excel or PowerPoint, right? In future it is going to be the same. So we have to have some understanding of these new age technologies, new age tools.
Because till now, when I was also guiding students,
Mm.
Power BI or Tableau, I was telling them it is compliance or core finance teams where
Mm.
they're using. But
Mm.
I was not aware that compliance team also would be using it
Mm.
in their activity. So this is a very good point. I think so audience will be able to understand it
Yeah.
and they'll be able to pick it up. Now, in terms of any certification, apart from
Mm.
the Power BI and all, like you have done CFA, Claritas investment certification, any certification which is there in the compliance space
Mm.
or closer to that, which
Mm.
anybody can do and get a view of what is happening in compliance.
Well, not specific to the broader uh, compliance domain, but there are AML, FinCrime specific certifications and courses. Then there are global certifications like CCEP or GARP. Uh, uh, People can do that, if they want to understand compliance or risk management as a whole. FRM is also one good, course which people can do. But of course, all of these are a little expensive and
Right.
time consuming.
Right.
So people have to think twice before they get into that space.
Right.
That requires a lot of effort and time and money as well.
Hmm.
But yeah, these could be the ones for people to start, if they want to get into this space, or rather they can, if they have an opportunity to work within compliance space, they can start their career, and alongside
Then they can
opt for
start.
these courses as well.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
But yeah, these are the
And what about ACAMS? Is
of
a
course.
certification for that also? Right?
Yes, it is also there, specific from a FinCrime perspective, right? From an to explore that space, ACAM could also be one of the.
But that is also widely used
Yes.
certification in the industry.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Because there are a lot of people who are working and who have moved abroad. I know some people who have done these certifications and they have got opportunity
Yeah.
abroad. in
Even I
compliance
know
space.
even I know a lot of my ex colleagues who have done it. It is helpful. But then there are a lot of other certifications as well,
Right.
specifically around AML and FinCrime space, just like ACAMS as well. But ACAMS is the one which is globally acceptable and globally known.
It covers anti-money laundering
Yes.
also in detail.
Yes.
Okay. But right now, just a connecting question. AML, we have been hearing about it for a lot of years now. And in banks right now, it is very stringent. So, how a person can be, or basically somebody who's working in compliance, can make himself aware about anti-money laundering things? So, generally, companies have their in-house training itself. They train internally.
Yeah. So, money laundering or anti-money laundering is a common term these days, right? Even a non-compliance personnel gets to hear that on a daily basis, right? So if someone wants to know about it, they can easily access the information on social media, right? LinkedIn is a good space. YouTube is a good space. Tech firms, of course, is one, right? We see a lot of information on regulatory websites as well, right? So information is available on public domain, paid and free content as well. But of course, the major part of it is driven from the compliance teams as well internally, right? In any company, there are specific and specialized anti-money laundering related courses that is created and circulated within the forms, right? Where people can go and read through. It could be an simple training program or an animated one, There are different modes of screening program that happens, but yeah, that is one of the uh, major area where companies try to create awareness around these matters.
Right.
Right? But information, like I said, information is still available in public domain for people to be aware of what is happening in that space and real time as well.
Right.
From an events perspective and from a regulatory requirement changes perspective, what was in the past, what is current, and what is upcoming as well.
Right. And compliance being at the center, so it's a high stake game, right? Because you're
Yes.
also dealing with the regulator, you're also dealing with the in-house people and managing everything internally. So what are the major challenges that you see? Because when we read, okay, so there is insider trading, say there is front running. So how do you guys manage it, and what are the major challenges you face as a compliance professional?
So there's always a notion, from uh, from non-compliance people in general, right? That we are always ready to say no to any risk, right? We are termed
Okay.
as barriers to progress, right? We create hurdles uh, when it comes to implementing strategies or achieving business goals, but that is not correct, right? And why I said that, because at times we have seen in the past that let's say if there is any business proposal, right, that needs to go through different level of scrutiny, right, from a, let's say, due diligence perspective or an approval perspective in a
Right.
layman's term, right? It goes to every stakeholder, uh, legal,
Compliance is also there,
compliance,
yes.
it's a senior management as well, right? When everyone does their assessment based on their checklist,
Right.
because they are the experts and they know what is the appetite or the risk appetite of the firm, where we can say, let's say, halt this, or it's a go ahead, right?
Right.
So business doesn't understand that at times, or other divisions, they do not understand that at times. But that is not the case, right? We know what is the right approach for the firm, or what is the bare minimum risk that we can accept, and then still can let the project proceed
Right.
further. So there's always that
Challenge.
challenge and conflict happening
Okay.
between businesses, basically non-compliance and compliance, experts. That is the main challenge. But then the other usual ones, which is common across globe from a system perspective, that we usually see, and I believe that should get resolved in the next 5 or 10 years with adopting AI based technologies and all. But yeah, these are the two main things I see and have observed in the past, mainly.
Okay, wonderful. Now, from the career perspective, now you have joined at an associate level also, and you've progressed to a VP level. What is the change in thinking that anybody needs to have, or what thought process anybody needs to have to progress to a senior level in any organization?
This is what I believe. Uh, you have to be a problem solver. You have to keep on learning and keep yourself updated. Like I said, knowledge is power, right? Um you have to have a proactive approach,
Okay.
right? And again, that is very important into compliance space. We cannot wait for events to happen and then react. We have to
Right.
think 10 steps ahead and then act it accordingly to mitigate risks.
The risk.
And then you have to be a little empathetic as well to specific situations when it comes to your peers, your juniors, and at times your seniors as well. So these are 3 4 key items that you have to follow on a day-to-day basis from a long-term growth perspective. That's what I can think of.
Okay. Okay. How do you manage a healthy work-life balance? Because when you start going up in the ladder, corporate ladder, the amount of commitment is going to increase. The work time might also increase. So, and also stress. So, how do you manage everything and also your work life basically?
Stress is a part of corporate culture which we cannot ignore, no matter at what level you work. but it's up to an individual how the person handles it.
Hmm.
Personally, for me, I think uh, managing time properly has been the key, right?
Okay.
I know at the start of the day, by looking at my inbox, what I need to action first and what I can keep at the end of the day or middle of the day or the end of the day, right?
Hmm.
So I personally follow, and I keep on telling this to my, peers and juniors as well, right? Uh, if you can analyze at the start of the day, what work takes 30 seconds or 5 minutes, action that instantly, right? And that's how you prioritize your day. You can keep an item for, let's say, middle of the day or end of the day, which is taking 45-50 minutes, right?
Hmm.
And I've observed in the last 18-20 years that the day looks like that only. You'll have 50 to 60% of your work, which is a item which can be closed quickly or action quickly,
Hmm.
but few seconds or few minutes, right, that might take. And majority of the item or action items are the bigger ones, let's say 30-40% of them.
Right.
So you can action the resolvable items quickly,
Hmm.
and then look at the other items which are taking more time, and you can look at them peacefully without thinking of the items which you have not closed, which could have been closed.
Okay.
Right? That is unnecessarily, creating that pressure on ourselves. So
Hmm.
that is how I've been dealing my
Time management.
time management on a daily basis. And of course, delegation also comes into picture. And at times, let's say if things are not going as per plan, we do seek out for additional time as well. Reaching out to seniors or reaching out to stakeholders at times as well. You have to do that as well. But yeah, proper planning, prioritization of your work,
Right.
and all in all, better time management is the key.
Okay. Second last question. How do you see the future of compliance for investment banks in India?
Heavily tech driven. I'm very, very optimistic on that. Um, compliance is mostly data driven,
Hmm.
right? And AI technologies or these evolving technologies are using or leveraging data very well, right? In terms of analytics, of creating, a new data form, by analyzing the data, or creating a trend analysis, which is, accurate and better than created by a human,
Okay.
right? Or better risk management as well from a long-term perspective, right?
Hmm.
So I see compliance and new technologies or AI based technologies working hand in hand in the long term. So hence
And the number of data is also going to increase.
of course, as we expand, companies are expanding, going global, right? And India has a growth story in the next 10-20 years.
Right.
So we will expand, data will expand, compliance issues might expand, opportunities might expand. So we'll have more opportunities in that sense. But yeah, AI and compliance will have to work together, and there's a lot of opportunities in that space.
Okay. One career advice that you got which helped you from your senior or anybody basically.
Enhancing knowledge was one, right? So you have to keep on reading and reading. That is one thing. And secondly, if you have to be, let's say, at a level, you have to start behaving at that level, if you want to
Right.
be there. So let's say an analyst want to be a senior analyst, let's say, within a year or 2 year, the person has to start behaving like a senior analyst the moment he or she starts thinking, right?
Right.
So that was a good piece of advice that I got at a very early stage of my career from one of my seniors.
Right.
That's what I try to do on a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
Think strategically, solve problems, think 10 steps ahead. That's how I've been keeping my approach throughout my career.
Wonderful. Wonderful. We have one final segment where you have to answer fast. Okay. So we need one word. Okay. What's the one word that best describe your leadership style?
Empathetic, collaborative.
Okay. If not compliance, what other role in finance you would have done?
Maybe operational risk management or audit.
Okay. Okay. What is the most skillful, valuable skill for anyone starting in finance today?
Keep learning about the regulatory landscape, plus also try to embrace new technologies. Learn uh, uh, programming languages like SQL or
Python,
Python,
Power BI,
if
yes.
possible, and of course, business analytic tools like Power BI and Tableau will be really helpful in long term.
Okay. What is the biggest misconception people have about working in compliance?
I told you some time back, non-compliance professionals think that we are kind of hurdles in business growth or driving compliance strategy, but that's a notion. We, at the end of the day, are trying to mitigate a risk for the firm and trying to, build trust in the market, from a client perspective, and we are trying to, build reputation as well. So all in all, we are trying to manage risk for the firm, and we do what it takes to, do keeping or balancing both business goals and strategies, along with, managing risks as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. It was great talking to you, and
Same here.
got a good insight on what exactly happens in the compliance team and from the perspective of a professional who's already been there. So thank you very much. This is going to be really helpful for our audience who's looking out to grow in career in finance. So thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much for inviting me, Ganesh.
Thank you.